Free Minds TV is brought to you in part by anarchyinyourhead.com, a comic about freedom. When it comes to politics, they hate just about everyone, so they're bound to make fun of someone that you don't like eventually. Anarchyinyourhead.com, that's anarchyinyourhead.com.
Tonight on Free Minds TV, we'll be bringing you an exclusive interview with Ian Freeman of Free Talk Live. He was arrested for a couch in his yard, and he's subsequently been released. We'll also be bringing you details about Lauren Canario's arrest and continued imprisonment. And we have a story from Attleboro, Massachusetts, where an elderly blind woman is facing a lien on her property for a 1-cent late payment on a water bill. All that and more coming up tonight on Free Minds TV.
And welcome to an all-new edition of Free Minds TV, where we challenge you, the viewer, to think outside the box. With you, as always, is Toby.
And Nick.
All right, we've got a jam-packed full show we're going to be talking about tonight. The director of Free Minds TV, Lauren Canario, has been imprisoned yet again. I think this is the 6th time she's gone behind bars for civil disobedience or something they're similar of. We'll be talking about that in the second half of tonight's show. But first, we're going to be talking about Ian Freeman and the Couch Enforcer, the Couch Saga. It continues. It all came to a head this last Friday, November 14th, in Keene District Court, right here in Keene, New Hampshire, where we're broadcasting from. Now, if people are just watching this all started, if the people don't know the backstory of this, log on to freekeene.com or watch some of the archives of our show, and the whole backstory is there. But just briefly, what happened is Ian had a couch, actually Ian's tenants had a couch that was in the lawn that the tenants were renting from Ian. Now, a neighbor down the street, which subsequently turned out to be a Keene bureaucrat, one of the city planners here in Keene, was complained about the couch to the code enforcement, and Ian was given a notice that he must remove the couch or face a fine. Ian didn't remove the couch. He was given a fine, didn't pay the fine, was brought to court. In court, this time when he went for a trial, he was arrested very quickly before really he even got a chance to sit down. In fact, he was arrested for not sitting down quickly enough.
Right, and he got 93 days as a result of this, 3 days of which were for the couch, and he got 3 charges of contempt of court. One was for not sitting down fast enough, apparently, and we have footage that'll show you exactly what happened for the first contempt of court charge, but we aren't exactly sure what happened on the subsequent offenses because Ian was taken into a small room after that point, and we weren't able to get any footage of that.
Well, yeah, the court had them shut off the cameras. Now, this is the thing. I know a lot of people have different thoughts on what's Ian doing. This is all over a couch. I mean, a lot of people think this is childish. So, be that as it may, some people think this is different things. I don't like to think of this as a couch. I just like to think of this as showing the gun in the room, no matter how small the law is, whether it be a law about jaywalking or whether it be a law about murder. There is a gun in the room. That's the force of violence, the promise of real violence that will come to people if they disobey the system and don't follow the rules.
Right, and in some cases, I think it's appropriate to use laws if it's something like murder or theft, because those are crimes where someone is hurt. There's force being used by the person perpetrating that crime. But in this case, it's a property rights issue. I mean, Ian is being told he can't do what he wants with his own property, and if he refuses to obey what the city's telling him, he'll go to jail. And he was able to demonstrate pretty effectively that at the end of all this, either you do what the city says, even though it's your property, or they'll throw you in jail.
All right, so let's. A lot of people haven't seen this footage yet. This was taken in Keene District Court that last Friday, November 14th, when Ian went into the court. We have some footage that's been up at freekeene.com all over the web, but for those of you who haven't seen it yet, let's take a look at the footage, and you tell us if you think it warrants 93 days in jail.
Session. Thank you. Have a seat, President. Is it Ian Bernard? Ian Bernard?
I'm
Have a seat. Have a seat. Have a seat.
Are you making an offer?
Have a seat.
I'll be doing that under duress.
Take him into custody.
Yes, sir.
Have a recess.
All right.
I'm under duress.
Okay, I'm just going to have you stand for me. I'm just going to have you put your hands behind your back.
Operating under duress.
Okay, I understand. Okay, I just want to get this to you. Is that all right with you?
That's fine.
All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to double lock those just so they don't get any tighter on you. I don't want to see them lock
I'm
up.
not going anywhere on you.
Well, I just, when you sit down with these cuffs, these bushing cuffs, they'll tighten up on you, and I don't want them to tighten up on you. Okay, are they all right?
Yeah.
All right. I just
I can.
Well, yeah. You want them over here? Sure. Let's go on over here and have some. Okay, Ian, we're gonna run your court case in the other courtroom. I'm going to set on the TV here so everybody can see it. So it'll be on video for you, so you'll be able to see it.
Will you bring my notes in?
Yep. Yeah, I'll bring those.
Okay. Will my cameraman be able to be in?
Negative. You'll be able to see it through here. Okay.
Am I following you?
This is Ian, right? This is Ian, right?
Yeah, it is.
Jack. That's his jacket.
And when Ian was taken into that back room, the courts did have people shut off the cameras, so they weren't even allowed to videotape the small little TV that was in the back of the room that they were able to watch and sort of listen on. I'm told from people who were in the court that it was very hard to hear anything from there, so it's hard to tell what exactly went on behind the back room. I'm told that it was something to do with Ian wasn't willing to talk or answer certain questions, and so he got 2 more contempt of court charges. Each 3 contempt of court charges had 30 days attached to him, and then he got 3 days for the couch. And he went to jail on Friday. They hauled him right away. But on Monday, he was released. And I believe you, last night when you were on Free Talk Live, had a chance to sit down with Ian and get his take on things right after he was released from jail.
Right, and we should probably go ahead and roll that interview. I do the Tuesday night program on Free Talk Live. I'm a guest co-host, so I had an opportunity to sit down with Ian on a commercial break and just get his account of things. So let's go ahead and roll that footage, and we can talk about it after we come back. So we're here with Ian Freeman of Free Talk Live in the Free Talk Live studio. And Ian, you just got out of jail as a result of your, what would you call it, civil disobedience in regards to the city's complaint about the couch in your yard.
Yep.
And you had originally been sentenced to 93 days?
That was their sentence.
And as I understand it, that was for 3 days for the couch, and was it 90
30 days each for 3 counts of contempt of court.
And what exactly prompted the contempt of court charges?
Well, you can see the video. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to play the clip, but over at freekeen.com you can see the actual courtroom footage where, I mean, basically the fix was in. These guys wanted to arrest me from the moment that I walked in, probably because they knew I was going to ask questions that people didn't want to hear, the government people don't want to hear. And so I was standing, when the judge came in, he told people to sit down. As I was sitting, you can see this in the video, I was in the process of sitting down. They then call my name, and I begin standing up again, sort of as a natural response to, oh, well, that's my name being called, I'm going to stand up now. And then the judge starts yelling. I go to sit down, I say 2 words as I'm sitting down, and it's all over within like 6 seconds. I'm sitting when the judge says to cuff me, arrest me.
There's raw footage of that available. Is it still up at freekeen.com?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so people can see that for themselves. It was a pretty quick arrest. And so basically what happened? Because you're out now and it hasn't been 93 days since the trial.
It's a good question what happened. That was the first contempt charge. Then they took the trial, which was supposed to be public, and there was supposed to be somebody able to record it with a video camera. They took that trial and they moved it into a little secret tribunal. Now, it wasn't completely secret in that they did show it on a television screen in the courtroom, the original courtroom, but no one who was recording, the guy that we had there recording the footage, was told to shut off his camera. So effectively it became a secret trial to all but those who were in that particular courtroom, and apparently even they had a tough time hearing the audio from the feed in the other room. So during that whole process, I attempted to ask some questions, and they did not want that to happen. Also, they tried to ask me a couple questions, which I didn't want to answer, and so I got 2 more contempt of court charges for not really wanting to answer what the questions were. So, I mean, basically the charges were for not sitting down fast enough and trying to ask a question, and two more contempt of court charges for refusing to answer in the manner that they wanted me to answer. So it was like, you know, punishing me for not speaking and punishing me for speaking. I mean, it really was crazy. Threw me in the jail cell. I was there all weekend long, and I was hoping that... I didn't know what my girlfriend Julia was feeling about this. I knew she was probably having a tough time, and I should do what it took to get out as soon as possible. So I used an opportunity Monday morning on a video conference with Mr. Burke to essentially apologize for my behavior on Friday and make it clear to him that I would not do that when I was in there the next time. They're going to have me back in there on the Freedom Fest charges, which I think we've talked about before, on the 12th. And so I will play by the rules this time around, and I'll be a good little boy. And so as a result of that, you know, he found that as to be sincere, and he commuted this. I guess it wasn't really commuting the sentence. He suspended the sentence. So there's a 90-day suspended sentence. So I spent 3 days in jail, 90-day suspended sentence. Some would suggest that one of the reasons why he did what he did was not just because I essentially asked for mercy, but also because a lot of the activists out there, liberty-loving people, contacted the district court and contacted the jail and made a bunch of phone calls and, you know, basically said, hey, you know, we're not forgetting about this guy. Let him out. This isn't right what you did. And I'm sure that had an effect. It's just hard to judge what kind of level of effect it had, because if I hadn't have begged for mercy, then we really would have been able to see how effective those calls would have been. But since I did do that in order to get out as soon as I could, it's hard to really qualify it. But the amount of outpouring of support from people from around the world, not just in New Hampshire, was absolutely tremendous. And I want to thank everybody who got behind me on this, just as others have gotten, as I and others have gotten behind others who've done civil disobedience in the past. And of course, those that do non-cooperation and civil disobedience into the future can expect, you know, a similar level of support from the great activists up here in New Hampshire. And if you're not here, then you really should ask yourself, why not?
All right, well, thanks, but we have a commercial break that's ending soon, so we got to get back to this show.
Thanks,
all right.
Nick.
Thanks, Ian.
And so there you can see basically what ended up happening was Ian, he essentially apologized to the court because he didn't want to be in jail for 93 days. That's a long time. And I understand the fine was paid, and they gave him a suspended sentence. So as long as he doesn't have any further trouble with the city or any other government organization for the next, I'm not sure how long it runs, but I believe it's probably 6 months or a year, within a certain amount of time, as long as he has no more problems with the city, he won't end up serving that 90 days, which was tacked on for the contempt of court charges.
Now, there's a lot of people that are wondering why Ian's doing this. A lot of people just don't understand it. And Ian has his reasons. I think one of the main ones was, like I said, to show the gun in the room that's behind all these laws. Government is force. I mean, like government, hate government. Let's just be honest about it. Government is force. And when you are making a law, they do back it up with real violence from the government. The other thing Ian did was get a ton of publicity for this. This thing hit huge on the internet, all over the web. Places were covering this. Of course, the Keene Sentinel is kind of black this whole story out. I didn't see any coverage from them, but on the net, tons of people were watching the videos, got a lot of coverage, and a lot of people say that they're now going to be moving to Keene because they're inspired by this activism. So if Judge Burke, who was presiding that day, didn't want more activists like this coming to Keene, cracking down on them, I don't think was the correct answer, because a lot of people have been inspired and are planning to move here because of the way Judge Burke acted in his courtroom.
Well, and I'm not surprised by the fact that Ian got contempt of court charges. I mean, Ian's plan was essentially to ask some questions, ask who was the injured party, and you know, he's not going to recognize that the city code being violated actually makes the city a victim. So he was planning on essentially walking out of the courtroom. So I was expecting Ian to go to jail, but I think the way things actually played out, It seemed like it was planned out. I mean, the judge and the bailiffs all seemed to know that they were going to arrest him right off the bat, and
well, they told supporters ahead of time that they were going to be arresting anyone who refused to stand for the judge as well. So they were ready there with a lot of police officers ready to arrest more people.
And that, I mean, that is within their purview. I mean, as a judge, you have broad powers if you feel people aren't respecting
the emperor
the court.
of the courtroom.
Right, but I have a serious problem with it when you're essentially setting things up so that you give somebody a contempt of court charge. And what's more, I didn't hear any warning on that footage that he was going to be held in contempt if he didn't sit. The judge is supposed to give you a warning before they just give you a contempt of court charge. You're supposed to, they're supposed to give you the opportunity to play by the rules. And in this case, it seemed like they just kind of threw that contempt of court charge right on him because they could.
Yeah, he was definitely railroaded into it. Now, how much is this all costing? Well, Ian wasn't in jail for the full 90 days, but if he had, it would have cost us, I think, something like around $7,000 or so to house him in the county jail for that time. There was also huge fees in order to pay the judge, the bailiff, and all those extra police officers they had in court that day, not only for this one day's trial, but all the subsequent trials leading up to it and all the bureaucrats' time. Nick, how much are you willing to pay for the city of Keene to go after people like Ian? I mean, like him, dislike him, think that he's doing the right thing or the wrong thing. How much are you willing to pay in order for the city of Keene to go after this guy?
I don't really want to pay anything towards it. I mean, it might make sense for the city if they can get more of a fine out of him than they're going to spend in the prosecution. But in this case, I think the fine was $100 or $120, something like that. And it may have gone up because he didn't pay it for a while. But there's no way they made back any kind of profit for the city on the fine. I'm sure they lost money, and that ends up being picked up by the taxpayers of Keene. So when they prosecute on these insignificant little charges, they're actually losing money.
Right.
And cities can
a lot of money.
Well, cities can do that.
Thousands and thousands of dollars they're losing in this budget crisis that we're in, and the city's spending thousands of dollars to go after non-violent people who haven't hurt anybody. I'm sorry, but I mean, Ian didn't hurt anyone. There is no victim here. I'm not willing to spend a penny of my tax dollars for Ian to be prosecuted for this, but apparently someone is, because the city's going after him.
Well, it would have been cheaper to just pay him, say, $100 to remove the couch when you look at what the city probably lost on this prosecution. But cities don't operate that way because they're not a business, so they don't have to actually please anybody. They can get your taxes from you whether you like it or not, or you'll lose your house. So they can do pretty much whatever they want, whether it's efficient or makes sense or not. And that's one of the biggest problems with government, is that they're not actually incentivized to do what makes sense.
Right. Well, Ian wasn't the only person who was in jail over the weekend. Lauren Canario, the director for Freeman's TV, is currently serving a 30-day sentence behind bars in a federal court here in New Hampshire because of something she did a few months ago when she went to get her camera back. Now, this all started over a year ago up in Plainfield, New Hampshire, when Lauren Canario was up supporting Ed and Elaine Brown, who are currently tax evaders, tax protesters, whatever you want to call them. Well, Lauren had her camera taken away by the police when she went to walk up to their house. The federal marshals didn't want her to, and they took her camera and took her into custody. Well, they then told her a couple months ago that she could have her camera back. So when she went to the federal courthouse to get her camera back, they asked her to empty her pockets before walking through the metal detector. She said she didn't want to, so they gave her a disorderly conduct charge. In the video that people are watching, they gave her a disorderly conduct charge because they said that they were blocking the entranceway of the metal detector, like blocking the throughway. And it's clear from the video people are watching that people were able to pass through. She wasn't blocking anything, and the scene that the guards were making was the real blockage of traffic that was going through. So they gave her 30 days in jail for that because she didn't take her cell phone out of her pocket. During sentencing, the judge compared her to Carl Draga, who was a mass murderer, and she's currently, I think she's on her 10th day when this is being recorded, so she'll be there through Thanksgiving, into the months of December. I think she'll be out just in time closer to Christmas, or the Christmas season is when she'll be coming out from behind bars, and we're all paying for this thousands and thousands of dollars. Is this what you want your tax dollars going towards? Even if you don't agree with Lauren Canario and what she's doing, are you willing to pay to put her in a cage? I don't know.
Certainly, I think a lot of people aren't. They don't really care that much whether you empty your pockets before you go through the metal detector or not. And it really seems like a lot of times when you're dealing, whether it's the federal government or the local courts, they could just say you can't come in and leave it at that. But they're a fan of throwing charges at people who don't comply with them. And really,
people who don't want to play their game, they don't really get along with.
Right, and you're not allowed not to comply. I mean, even if you're not in custody, you're just picking up property. Right, you can't say, I don't want to go through the metal detector, bring my camera out or whatever. They're not going to do that. And they tend to want to throw charges at you. That's sort of what they do. I mean, it's the court system.
Well,
their entire business is essentially prosecuting people.
Yeah, but it works for most people. For the majority of people, don't want to go to jail for 30 days or 90 days or 3 days or at all. They don't want any kind of... They don't want to be involved with the courts whatsoever because it's a huge headache. It costs thousands of dollars and you lose your livelihood or your freedom. Of course, some would say that Lauren is freer than most because she's living her own life and living by her own rules. But regardless, for the majority of the population, it works. Now, as more and more freedom activists start using these tactics, will it freeze up the court system and will real change actually be done? Because if everybody took these tactics, the system would jam up and it just wouldn't work. If everybody requested a trial instead of pleading guilty for these victimless crimes such as small drug possession, underage drinking, riding a bicycle on the sidewalk, all these crimes that there's no real victim to, if everyone decided to just go through the court process, it would all freeze up. And
right. You don't actually have to be disobedient. Just asserting your right to a trial would be enough that they couldn't process it all. They're backlogged as it is, and most people are just pleading guilty. If you go into district court, it's essentially mostly traffic tickets, minor drug possession charges, and it's 9 out of 10 people are just pleading guilty, and it takes about 2 minutes to do that. If they actually requested a trial and pled not guilty, they just wouldn't be able to prosecute on these small offenses, so they'd actually have to focus on things like grand theft auto and rape and murder. You know, the things that they probably should actually be focusing on.
The question is, are all the crimes of property theft, murder, rape, are all those crimes solved here in the region? No? Then why are you going after peaceful people and spending my tax dollars on going after peaceful people? All right, I just want to get into one other article, this coming from Attleboro, Massachusetts, so it's just south of us. Those, well, socialists in the to the south, they recently voted away their income tax. Well, they voted to keep it, right?
Right. They had the opportunity to get rid of the income tax in Massachusetts, and they rejected that by like a 2/3 margin, which was a lot worse than last time when it got 45% support to get rid of the income tax. So they like their taxes.
I guess they like it. Their city governments are also inefficient. It seems like governments all over are inefficient.
But more so in Massachusetts, I would argue.
A little bit. At least this story would point to them being quite a bit more inefficient. Now, this is a story about a lady named Miss Wilbur. She's a 74-year-old blind lady who got a bill from this water and sewer company, which is the city, which does the water and sewer in Attleboro, for 1 penny. And when her daughter came over to read it to her, she found out that she owed a penny, and it looks like the city is threatening to put a lien on her house and charge her an extra $48 for the late payment on this 1 penny charge.
I think she actually paid, didn't she actually, I think how it came about was that she had paid a bill, but it was 1 cent short, and then they...
She's blind.
Right, so I could see how you might miss the 1 penny if somebody tells you, oh, the bill's for $74, if it's for 74 and 1 cent, that's what you end up cutting the check for, or however you're paying it, if you're blind. I don't know if you can write a check, I'm sure you probably can. But, you know, it seems like easy enough thing to do, even if you're not blind. You might just assume that they would roll the 1 cent over. I mean, they do that around here.
Well, that's what a private business would do, I think. I think if you're talking about the cable company, you're talking about the private company, or any of these businesses or utilities that are run by private individuals who are there trying to make a profit, yeah, they just roll the penny over the next one because the price of a stamp's 42 cents. So you're going to be losing out no matter what. You send her a bill, she pays the penny immediately, you're definitely losing out because it costs you 42 cents just to send her the bill.
The cost of the envelope is probably
the bureaucrat stuffing the envelope, all the time it took to charge her this 1 cent, let alone threaten her with a lien and jacking up her fine for $48, putting a lien on someone's house over 1 penny. Yeah, only governments would be going about doing this. So it just goes to show that the governments are more... Like, the object of the game is just to show that force of power. You will pay this bill no matter how much it costs us to collect it for you. It's 1 penny, but you must pay it because you owe it to us. We can't just roll it over. That would make too much sense. So
Is that why they still make pennies that cost more than a penny to make? I mean, I don't even know why they still make pennies at this point, because it costs the government more than a penny to make that. So
it just doesn't
maybe it's time
make much sense, you know? I mean, why couldn't they just roll this over? Why do they have to put a poor old woman through all this stress? I mean, she's old, she's blind. She says in this article, it goes about how a lot of stress has come from this. She's real worried about this because they're threatening her with a lien. Her daughter comes and reads a letter they're threatening her with a lien over 1 penny. That's scary to hear that they're putting a lien on somebody's house, even if it is just for a penny. Now, why can't governments operate more like businesses? You know, it's because there's just no incentive to please. But if you have a different opinion, we'd love to hear it. Log on to our website, freemindstv.com. From there's a little email box to fill out. Our current email has actually been down lately, so the FMTV at freemindstv.com has not been working. So log on to our website, freemindstv.com, and also our talkback line is gone too. We're done with that, Brenna, so you can take that one off too. If you want to call in the show, we're doing that on the live side, on the radio side now. If you want to call in, tune on to us every Sunday. We're live on the radio from, what is it?
It's 3 to 5 Eastern time, and well, the number is 1-800-259-9231. But if you want to listen to the show, you can do that at freemindsradio.com, freetalklive.com, or GCN. I believe it's just GCNlive.com. Any of those places, you can pick us up on.
Log on to our website. There's all the info, not only about that, but everything else about the show, archives, ways to help, everything, all at freemindstv.com. Well, it's been Toby here with you.
And Nick.
Have a great night. So.
Free Minds TV is brought to you by FreeKeen.com. FreeKeen.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. FreeKeen.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. FreeKeen.com.
Free Minds TV is brought to you in part by Life Productions for your basic and semi-pro video production needs. From full wedding and event coverage to DVD authoring and distributions, lifeproductions.com. That's LYFproductions.com.